nui kia koutou mō tō mātakitaki mai e pāna ki te kaupapa papatuanuku. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, but I'm also an activist, and I'm an artist activist in the sense of like I don't really even consider myself a musician. I consider music as my tool to be an activist. I've done a few things in regards to environmentalism on the front line. However, I've done more of my work has been about presenting what I want to say through music, because I just tend to find musically people kind of feel things a bit better and are open and receptive to what people have to say through music. Hi, Mommy. Hey, honey. So in 2017, I had the opportunity to go to Brazil and meet with Chief Raoni and connect with other indigenous peoples from around the world. Chief Raoni is probably one of the most well-known elders of the Amazon, who has spent his entire life fighting for the rights of his people and to protect the Amazon forest. He wanted to bring together the alliance in hope to protect the rights of Mother Earth. And so he got 200 plus indigenous peoples from around the world, shamans and chiefs, healers and their allies, to come together to right the rights of Mother Earth from an indigenous perspective of people living symbiotically with nature. And for humanity to recognize that indigenous people globally, that we have great solutions and we have indispensable solutions. Actually, how are we going to implement the rights of Mother Earth, and not just what it was created for, which was to implement the rights of Mother Earth into legislation. But for me, it's more about implementing the rights of Mother Earth into the hearts of humanity, because without it being in the hearts of humanity, and even in the consciousness of humanity, we can't go anywhere with it, and certainly people wouldn't be interested in putting it into local legislations. So we are here in Aotearoa. We are at the very beginning of our isolation around COVID-19, and that means that globally all of humanity is now basically, it's almost like Mother Earth has turned around and said, okay, you naughty kids, go to your room. And we're all literally locked up in our homes, not driving cars, not putting fossil fuels into the environment. We've all seen the results of that. We are in the middle of experiencing the incredible results of humanity not using fossil fuels. And it is the answer for the way forward. And we're in a really powerful position right now in all of humanity. We're in lockdown. We are seeing the very results of stopping fossil fuels. And it's the consciousness of all of humanity has come together after almost an entire year of the world being on fire. From the Amazon to Australia to Africa and all these places around the earth that have been on fire, and humanity coming to a place of seeing and being at the effect of what we've created, which is putting fossil fuels into the environment. Now we see, just even after weeks and even a couple of months of what no fossil fuels looks like for nature itself, which means for humanity there is hope. How do we therefore come out of this COVID-19 experience and change our way of living? How do we take this opportunity as the whole of humanity, as a conscious, living, breathing being of our consciousness collectively? How, therefore, can we move forward? Thank goodness that all of humanity is getting to experience the results of not using fossil fuels. And hopefully we're going to come out of this at the end of the period of this virus. We're going to come out of our homes and we're going to live differently. How are we going to do that? There are plenty of solutions globally. There are local solutions, and these are the things that we need to implement and come out of and practice. The rights of Mother Earth is something that has existed for Indigenous peoples from the time immemorial. Indigenous relationships, people that have a symbiotic relationship with nature, that are living with nature in a way that reveres the spirit of nature, that reads and understands the spirit of nature, that has thousands upon thousands of years of knowledge around the moods, the life, the seasons and the changes of the earth, and have such a deep understanding of the earth and the environments in which they live, that they can predict what's going to be happening, that they know and feel what is happening with the environments and the world around them. And that doesn't just come and happen overnight. This kind of stuff is knowledge that comes from thousands and thousands and thousands of years of living in one particular spot, living with one environment where there's certain trees, there's certain birds, there's certain rivers, animals, and all of that you as an Indigenous person are living symbiotically with, that you are understanding your place within that humanity is part of the spirit of the earth. One of the things that people are talking about are in regards to COVID-19 is, well, how did it get to this? So it's almost like humanity's this is not humanity's punishment, but this is the result of humanity's consciousness. I think humanity's become very scared, become very conscious and very scared. And right now, we've done the exact thing that we wanted. We didn't want to have the pollution that we were creating. We didn't want to have the atmosphere that was causing the fires. We all are conscious of the reason of the fires and fossil fuels. Ultimately, looking at the bigger picture and what is it that we're actually experiencing right now? We're seeing nature replenish, we're seeing nature revive, we're seeing nature heal, and we're even seeing the ozone layer healing itself and becoming stronger again. So it's really an incredible time, and humanity has called this in because collectively we all went, oh shit, what's happening, you know? The world's on fire. And then boom. There is a limit that nature has. We become unconscious of the life force within water, the life force within trees, the life force, and what exactly is their purpose in life, without even having an understanding of that, being completely and utterly disconnected from the way of which our food is served on the table. How many people these days do prayers for the food that they receive on their table? How many people do prayers to the earth, or prayers to the animals that is on the table, or prayers to the trees or the plants that are being providing for them? If people are living consciously of their environment, they know that bats carry diseases. So as humanity collectively, it's not just Chinese that are unconscious about things, it's also the rest of humanity, the rest of us. In Australia, the general public are unconscious around about traditional burn-offs. So there's globally where there's an unconsciousness around our relationship with the earth, and this is one way of nature saying, hey, look, you can't be doing this. This is not how it works. You know, humanity is not above the rights of Mother Nature. The rights of Mother Nature is what we need to be putting first and foremost in the hearts and consciousness of humanity. You know, we've gotten to this point like where we're doing stuff with nature and we're messing with it so badly that nature has come up with a way to fight back. The earth has created her own vaccine against humanity. We've gotten to a point where humanity does not recognize the spirit and the life force that's within nature itself, and that without that understanding and that respect and that consciousness and gratitude that we need as humanity towards nature, without those things in place, then we're not going to survive. We can't survive. We can't survive without the health and well-being, and not just the health and well-being, but the understanding of how nature itself works with other parts of nature. The whys, the wheres, the hows, the flow, the seasons, the stars, the winds, when they come, when they go, the oceans, like why they go in certain ways and at certain times of the year, what is it providing for certain fish. And if we don't have an understanding of our own, even our, whether you want to call it your food source or, you know, the things that build our homes, if we don't have an understanding of how to protect that which provides for us, if we don't have that deep-seated feeling in the hearts of all humanity, and the majority of humanity remains unconscious, we're going to keep getting the same. So what exactly are the rights of Mother Earth, the rights of nature? It's actually first, most, and utmost recognizing that the earth and all of nature is a living, breathing being, and it deserves to be healthy, it deserves to have continued life, and deserves to be nurtured, respected, revered by all of humanity. The rights of Mother Nature being that, especially as our position as Indigenous people and people who have a greater understanding of nature, we've lived in an environment for so long, for thousands of years, to actually have a complete understanding of the symbiotic relationship of everything within that environment. What is needed at this particular time of year for this river to stay healthy? What is needed for the ocean? What happens in the ocean in this very particular spot where one particular fish may come from the other side of the planet to come to this one spot that only exists in one part of the world for it to survive. So as Indigenous people, we have this knowledge, and it is through this knowledge and through this wisdom, and especially through this understanding that nature is a living being, spiritual being, that we need to open up our hearts and our spiritual awareness around the spirit of nature itself. living in order to have material happiness, or living in order to have constant gratification from experiencing life through materialism. This is about humanity's survival as a species, but the survival even of our logic. Humanity's logic as a collective, being completely and utterly unconscious of our environment, is suicidal. If things have been so messed up and changed from its natural state, then it becomes unhealthy. So when you've got genetically modified foods, when you've got foods that have lists and lists of words, scientific words that you don't understand on the packaging, when you buy clothing that just doesn't even feel natural, when we have those things, we become unhealthy. And because humanity is so unhealthy, the earth becomes unhealthy, and everything around us becomes affected and is at the effect of humanity's unconsciousness. It's all of our responsibility to understand our position, not just in life with each other and other humans, but with the spirit of nature itself. And what does that look like? Pretty much everything that we've learnt as a collective in humanity has come through the teachings of nature itself. And you can see that through human behavior. When we are able to sit with a tree and sit in silence and just listen to the breath of the tree, listen to the heartbeat of the earth, listen to the birds, listening to everything around us, we learn so much. We learn through sitting with nature itself and the spirit of nature how to be healthy as humans. And you can get answers from nature, you can get signs from nature, just from watching even the way nature grows, watching the cycles of nature. Everything that humanity has ever learnt has come from our relationship with nature. Then we get to a point where we've disconnected from nature. We've disconnected our learnings and our teachings from nature. And you will see that in those environments of humanity, you see pain, you see sickness, you see mental illness, you see all sorts of diseases and stuff that grows out of this unhealthy relationships that get created when we no longer are listening to the voice of nature. Even just gratitude being something where a prayer is gratitude. If you're able to say a prayer of gratitude to the spirit of the things that are on the table, you become really conscious of what you eat. When you become conscious of the process of the food that's on your table, it's really, really that simple. When you become conscious of the clothes that you wear, that there are no microplastics in your clothing. Pretty much 99% of clothing that you buy in shops now are all made out of microplastics, which all goes back into the ocean. Just sitting and listening and observing and it's a tui. And observing and being in nature and listening. And one thing that I've learnt growing up in my culture is this part here. So there's two worlds of spirit. There's Kawaikirunga and Kawaikiraro. Kawaikirunga being the realm and the spirit above, and the genealogies of things above, and then the genealogies of things below in the earth. So this point here upwards, the Kawaikirunga, the jaw above, is for observing. And so the mind in its silence, hine, ngaro, it's that anticipation of nothingness, that there's nothing in there because it's used to absorb. The mind is for absorbing. And this point down, Kawaikiraro, all that which is the whakapapa of the earth. From this point here down, it's like what you give with your words, what you give with your hearts, and what you give to your community, and what you give to your environment, what you give to people as a community. And unfortunately, all of humanity has flipped that around. So now the mind is used for judgment. The ears aren't listening, they're judging. The eyes aren't looking, observing and learning, they're judging. The mouth is like, it's the opposite. Everything's the opposite. So instead of giving with our bodies to our communities and to our people and to our families and to our environment, we eat, food, sex, materialism. Everything is give me. And all of this is judge. So the receptiveness, all of here down is receiving, and all of up here is giving. So it's the opposite way around. We've got to turn that around and remember that this part here is for observing, this is for receiving, and this part of us is forgiving, and forgiving in a healthy way. Ceremony is really, really important for humanity to have ceremony with nature. It's a way for us to learn quickly, powerfully, and healthily. And it's really important that we have a spiritual relationship with nature. That we don't just have a material relationship with nature. That we need to understand the heart, the spirit, and the being that nature is, because it's a living being. It's not just some dormant thing that we can just cut off at the head and consume. When we were in the assembly and we created the rights of Mother Earth, it wasn't, the experience that I got out of it was not that it was just something that was to be implemented in the laws of humanity and in the laws of governments and legislations. To me, it was about the law of the human spirit. As how do we implement it, unless it's in the hearts of humanity, it's not going to be in legislation. No one's going to put anything into legislation unless the human spirit really feels it. So for me, there's over 5,000 Indigenous peoples globally, 5,000 different Indigenous peoples around the world globally. There's 370 million Indigenous peoples around the world. There's over 4,000 language groups, over 5 continents, in over 70 countries around the world. Each Indigenous peoples have their teachings on the local environment. how do we implement the rights of Mother Earth on a grand global scale doesn't make sense unless you're involving local indigenous peoples. So people always say to me, well, what can I do? What can I do to implement the rights of Mother Earth in local legislation? Well, for me, number one is you've got to implement it in your life. You've got to implement it in your everyday life. What does that look like? Well, number one is you go to the local indigenous people, and it can be something as simple as, where are the local sacred sites? Why do those sacred sites exist? Learn the language, because the language is the doorway and the key to understanding the environment. There are words that you learn in indigenous languages that pertain specifically to the environment. I'll give you a perfect example. In Maori, the word, and I always refer back to this kupu because it's one of my favourite. In Maori, the word waiwaia means beautiful. And however, one of my elders taught me that the word actually meant or means or comes from the meaning of the reflection of the beauty of life in a droplet of water. Now, if you think about that for a moment, the beauty of life in the droplet of water is what beauty means. What if the water is polluted and it's murky? Are you going to be able to see the beauty of life? You won't see the reflection of anything. You will just see life through this murky picture. So to be able to have the experience of health and well-being in our minds and our bodies and our spirit and our souls and our journeys in this life is being able to see clearly who we are, where we're going in our journeys in life. You can't see that if the droplet of water is murky, is dirty, or has specks in it. So, without understanding nature's need to be healthy and well in order for us to be healthy and well, then we're not achieving what we wake up every day wanting to achieve. Everyone wakes up wanting to be loved. Everyone wakes up every day wanting to feel empowered, strong, healthy, and all these things. And unfortunately, we've come to a position where we've got this belief system that materialism is the way to gain it, that money will get you there. You know, I've just on my own personal experience, I've managed to live a life of great abundance. And I mean great abundance as in incredible relationships with the most colourful people in the world. And I mean colourful as in like getting to meet Indigenous peoples all over the world. Not just meeting them, but understanding them, experiencing their life through them and with them. And all done with absolutely no money. I've travelled with no money in this world, and I still have no money, but I still have a huge abundance of experience. Because the currency of the health and well-being of others and the health and well-being of yourself and myself comes through just that, even just the basic understanding of nature and human nature, and switching that around It's like, what can I observe? What can I learn? What can I listen to? What is it that the senses can smell? What is it that I can take in and observe in this world? And then the other important thing is, what can I give? What can I give to humanity? What can I give to these people? What can I share that empowers others? That is the currency of the health and well-being of nature and human nature. It's embedded in our own human nature, like that's why we get these diseases, like why we're going through this experience of COVID-19, because of literally humans disconnection from his understanding of nature. The discussion around being Indigenous and being non-Indigenous. Somewhere in our genealogical lineages, we have a powerful connection to a place and time where our ancestors, for generation after generation, for thousands of years, fed that local nature, fed the bodies and the DNA of the people from that area. If we look back through history, we can actually see where people of the West were colonized themselves. And you look at colonization, it's been the colonization of the feminine. And it's that female lineage of everything that has inequality. Where did the inequality of the feminine begin? If we go back through the history of the world's religions, it's easy to pinpoint when that started happening. And you can go back to when Western people themselves from the West were colonized themselves. And in that colonization, it was the colonization of the feminine. So you've got their indigenous beliefs, which are the Wiccans, the witches, the pagans, the warlocks, all those traditional beliefs of the tribes of Europe and the tribes of Britain, all of those different tribal times where the relationship with nature was healthy and intact. So nature for Indigenous people has always been a representation of the feminine. And therefore that balance of the masculine and the feminine has always existed in Indigenous cultures. So, and of course we've had this cut-off from our traditional practices and the spiritual relationship that we have as humanity with nature. And it's that spiritual disconnection that has been colonized. And when I come across my sisters, especially my beautiful white sisters, who say to me, well, I'm not Indigenous, I don't belong, and there's this feeling of like, I don't believe in exclusivity. I don't believe that being Indigenous makes you exclusively better than anybody else. I think as Indigenous people, we have this great balance of the feminine and the masculine belief systems, and that there's this beautiful balance that has an inclusivity of the masculine and the feminine, but also inclusivity of others. And what happens when you get this division between the masculine and the feminine, and we focus in the single focus of these religious and spiritual practices that are honoring the masculine, then that it becomes there's an exclusivity that comes with that. And you can see that in the lineages of the feminine. The men who are born into this world with feminine traits, anything to do with the feminine has a sense of inequality. The fight that feminine men, or men that have feminine traits, or prefer or have a preference for the feminine ways of living, they themselves have an inequality. The inequality of jobs globally for women. The inequality of, when people go to war and what happens to women and children in war. And I really believe that our spiritual relationship as humanity, and our acknowledgement of the great feminine being Mother Earth, and our relationship with that, and our spiritual relationship with that, until we come back to that spiritual relationship with the earth, there will be no equality of the feminine, because the earth is the greatest representation of the spirit of the feminine. And when I look at my sisters from the West who have, they've been colonized for 2,000 years from their own indigenousness. Their practices being burnt as witches, their traditional practices and of having a relationship that's powerful, spiritually powerful with the earth, that has them in a place of symbiosis and gratitude, where they're able to read and understand the magic and the mystery of nature itself, knowing that they embodied it, that themselves. That colonization back then is the cause of where we are today. And I truly believe, my sisters who say to me, oh, but, I'm so disconnected, I have blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, actually, it's in your DNA. And it is there. It's been colonized for 2,500 years or 2,000 years, whatever it's been. You can go back to that. There's a real simple practice that we do as Indigenous people. Go sit with nature. You sit with nature and you listen, you learn, you observe, and you appreciate. And nature does no longer become about a holiday on the weekend where we go to nature and we hang out in the bush for a weekend once a year. Nature becomes part of our everyday lives. One of the things that, besides providing us with food, shelter, clothing, water, nature, you can guarantee that when you sit in silence and you learn to observe the environment, and you learn to observe yourself within that environment, you can ask Creator. And I mean, you can ask nature, the Creator or the Creatress. And you can ask those questions that you need answered. And I will guarantee you, if you know how to silence your mind, from learning to train the mind to observe and really feel in your heart and ask those questions that you've been dying to ask, that you want answers to, you will get the answers from nature if you know how to listen. And that is where our human nature is healthy and in a place of well-being. So it's as simple as whoa, your ancestors, where were they from? What did they do? What fed? What nature? What part of nature? What pocket of nature fed their bodies for thousands of years, that it's in the DNA? And DNA does have memory. So in the memory of that, the way in which you can remember is as simple as, well, you can go back to that place. You can sit with that river for however long it takes for you to understand that river, and recognize your relationship and your symbiotic relationship with that river. You can go back and sit amongst that forest, watch the rhythms, the character, the personalities of everything within that environment. and then see how it comes out in yourself. And learn from it. Watch that symbiotic relationship that's going on in that area. And then you will gain a sense of your place in it. And then you will gain a sense of respect for it. And then out of that respect for it, you will come to understand its cycle. You will come to also understand its character, its personality. Then you will be able to understand how to honor it, how to respect it, how to live with it and be with it. And through your gratitude for it, create your ceremonial process that I'm pretty sure would not be far from the way in which your own ancestors created their ceremonies. Remembering that one day we are all going to be ancestors. Go sit out under a tree and ask the questions. Who am I? Where am I going? What have I done? Who have I been? Where am I at now? Where am I going? What are my gifts? Where do I need to mature? What do I have to give? May the Creator bless you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope that in some way that this message has empowered you. It is my wish and my desire that we all connect deeply right now with nature, and that we come out of this isolation in a new and powerful way, and that we listen to what nature is telling us, and that in some way, through what we learn with nature, that we at least learn to live with nature, in gratitude of nature, and symbiotically with nature. That's our indigenousness. Kia ora. Ahumai ngā hui a koe, ahumai ngā haui a koe. Tēnei ka hora, tēnei ka tupu, whakapuai ngā huatini. Te mauri ka wea pupuana e wawawana. Te mauri whakatike tike no rongo ki te whaiao. Kātou ko te rangirunga nei. Kātou ko te papa I raro nei. Tūturu whakamaua kia teina. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e.